Good day, my dear ones. I'm out for a walk today, and I'm thinking about a way of thinking that sometimes we fall into that's not a very positive human quality, and that is suspicion. Over the last number of months during this pandemic, we have really started to flex our suspicion muscle as we become, I think, more suspicious of people. Does a person have the virus? Can I be around them? Should I avoid them? Even when you're going for a walk today, I'm sure this has happened to you. It's already happened to me several times on this walk. You're approaching someone on the sidewalk and you got to decide which one of you is going to swing out to avoid the other person. You know, because we're suspicious. They might have the virus. And now, on top of that, in this last week, in the aftermath of the tragic death of George Floyd, there's been old muscle of suspicion called racism that maybe we've become more aware of. Again, I remember people talking about how when they were children, they'd be walking down the sidewalk and with one of their parents, and they'd be approaching someone who was of a different race than them. And their parent would pick them up or maybe even walk to the other side of the street because of suspicion. Suspicion is not loving. In fact, I would go as far as to say this: habitual suspicion is a sin that we need to work consciously to move away from. And it's going to take us some time, because we've been working on these suspicion muscles over time, over the last number of weeks. And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be something we snap out of easily. Just like racism is not something that we easily get over. It takes time. It takes conscious effort. This coming Sunday, we're going to talk about that in the sermon as we think about our response to what's happened in our culture in this last week and the upheaval that's happened. But let me share you this verse from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, where Paul writes this: "Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things." Through the power of God working within us, we can begin to overcome our habitual suspicions. The suspicions that are not loving, that we get trapped into simply because of some past experiences we've had. But I want to call us to do that, to work on getting over our habitual suspicions, whether it's about people who we're worried might have the virus, or people who are different from us, whose culture is different, whose ethnicity is different, whose race is different than ours as we imagine that to be. Because suspicion is not loving, especially habitual suspicion. But let's say this as well: it's going to take some time. It's not something that we're going to be able to easily get over and move beyond. Even as we start to come back together to meet in person for worship or for other gatherings, we have to understand that we've worked on some of these suspicion reflexes now for the last number of weeks, and it's going to take some time to unlearn that. Just like it takes a lot of time to unlearn racism that we may not even realize is turning around inside of us. It's going to be important for us to learn, just like we have worked to learn about this virus and how it spreads. And I've read so many articles and seen videos about that. Now in this last week, I've been reading articles and watching videos on racism and how that suspicion rises up inside of us and what to do to counteract it. It's going to take some time, and let's be patient with one another. Let's give each other grace, but let's humble ourselves and say there's things we need to learn. We need to learn how it is we can move away from habitual suspicion of others so that we can embrace one another again. It's not good for us to be alone. We know that. And the more we can get rid of our suspicions and begin to walk in embracing others more wholeheartedly, the better it will be for all of us, and the more Christ-like it'll be. So, I encourage you now to think about how some of the suspicions you carry around, some of the ways you've grown in your suspicion, and maybe begin to pray how you can move beyond that. Let's work on this, dear ones, so that we can move away from being people that are suspicious to being people that are loving. Have a great day.